I'm Shalini Dukhan, and I'm from the School of Animal, Plant and Environmental Sciences at Wits University. My focus area for my research is to look at lecture practice and student learning approaches in order to see what we as lecturers can do to assist our students in their learning and to improve their academic success at university. So I'm a biology lecturer, and most of my lecturing is with the first year students. So although I lecture biology, my research is actually in science education. And so therefore this paper here has a lot to do with science education, but it also includes investigating my own teaching practice so I can improve my pedagogic responsiveness to my students as well. I was at the time of this research looking at constructive alignment. And constructive alignment looks at the alignment between the curriculum, the learning outcomes, teaching activities, and assessments as well. So I started to think about my practice because I get the first year students right at the start of the year. So when these students come in from high school, they come from a wide range of backgrounds, a wide range of content that was taught at school. So when I get them in my first year class, I started to think about the curriculum and what the expectations of the curriculum delivery were for me. So what content I needed to provide to the students in my classroom. But I also wanted to consider how this works with what students come in with in terms of their knowledge. So their prior knowledge that they come into first year with. And what I really wanted to focus on there was the alignment between what students know and what we are meant to be teaching in the curriculum. Now, in order to be able to build on what students know as a lecturer, I needed to find out what the students' knowledge is when they come into class. And so therefore, I started to think about what strategy I could use in a large class situation to identify the knowledge foundation that the students have when they enter into university, so that I could build or structure my lectures according to the needs of the cohort. So it's about meeting the requirements of the curriculum, but also understanding where the students are at in their knowledge so that I could build on that knowledge foundation. And this is because when we introduce new knowledge into our classes, we need to build on the existing knowledge structure. So that is why I put into place the low stakes formative assessments to give me an indication of what the student understanding is so that I could customize my lectures according to the student's needs. What I like most about this particular research that I had engaged with was that oftentimes we hear about the lack of student preparedness when they come into university. And there's research globally to show us that student transition into university is an incredibly challenging one. So what I was quite fascinated with in this particular paper was that we could look at the first year curriculum and we could look at what the students' knowledge was when they come in. Now, I spoke about constructive alignment earlier on and how there's a particular curriculum that we need to deliver in the first year classroom. So usually papers would say things like, there's the curriculum that we need to deliver, and there's not really any space in the first year curriculum to put in more information. However, what I was able to see from my research was that actually the curriculum and the learning outcomes is a very flexible area, and we can adapt our teaching practice to meet the needs of the learning outcomes in the curriculum, but also to meet the needs of the students who enter into our classrooms. So usually we use assessments to test students' understanding, and sometimes we also use it as a tool to assist students to learn. So the biggest learning for me from this was the use of multiple choice tests, online multiple choice tests, in order to provide us as the lecturer of an idea of what the students' understanding is. But it also was quite interesting because the students could also identify what our expectations were based on the prior knowledge test. So they could see what gaps in their understanding were, and I as the lecturer could also use that information to see where my students were at in their understanding so that I could build on their learning appropriately as well. When I was engaging in this research here, it was just pre-pandemic. And so what I would have liked to do was delve further into looking at the alignment between the curriculum and the students' needs. So with the onset of the pandemic and the move to online learning, the focus changed. So what I started to look at further then was the affective needs of the students. So how we could connect with our students as lecturers in order to open the lines of communication, especially amongst first years, because the first year is where there's a little bit of anxiety amongst students to be able to speak out in these large classes amongst their peers. And so with the move online, my fear was that the students would limit their communication with me or with their peers even further. And so I started to move into looking at how to open those channels of communication with students more recently. The other really fascinating thing that I think this work would lean towards is to how to use assessments for learning. So in this case here, where the MCQs were used to test students' understanding and the low stakes assessments, it was to show students what gaps they had in their knowledge, and I was able to gain that information as well. So it's more about assessment for learning as opposed to assessment in order to show a particular grade for the student.